Do you ever get a rush of blood to the head while you're playing FM that ends with you spending £80 million on a player that doesn't even start for you? Just me then. The recaps are going to be coming thick and fast over the next couple of weeks as we try to burn through as many seasons as possible before I move house, while in the background working on the Lone Farm video, the new Agent video, and the bigger project which is still coming. I'm starting to sound like one of those SoundCloud rappers. Big things coming soon. I promise they actually are. So we came into season 28, which is mad by the way, of Building a Nation with Sirens of Malta off the back of our 4th Champions League win in 6 years. But this also came with the benefit of Valletta becoming European champions for the first time and becoming the first side from Malta, other than us of course, to win a European trophy. But this also came with some downsides, most notably the fact that we would have 8 teams in Europe this season, and that comes with more dilution and teams that you really don't want in competitions they have no business being in. It was going to be tough. So we decided to prepare for that eventuality by absolutely shattering our transfer record on a new player. And despite all that, we still managed to make a profit this season overall, mostly thanks to the £260 million worth of player sales we were able to make. The first and most expensive of the bunch was Tesco's Express to Liverpool for £100 million. We'd essentially come to the conclusion that us constantly chopping and changing the tactic was seemingly almost always happening during those seasons when we didn't win the Champions League, and things just didn't feel anywhere near as conjoined as they have been when we just stuck to a consistent tactical plan. Even if it's the same thing reversed, for some reason we just seemed to play worse when we were switching around, and Tesco's Express just wasn't getting a look in. And when Liverpool said, how about 100 million? We said, yeah, we'll probably take that, honestly. We are retraining Fageda to play through the centre, so at the very least he will be able to stick around, but that is a slow process. We're slowly sort of getting rid of our entire left side. But good progress to be made there, good profit, £100 million. What can you say? We also moved on Winston Vinken, who's now 32 years old, to Arsenal for 51 million. Bear in mind, this man joined us for free last summer, had a relatively mid-season where he couldn't really get in our team, and despite the fact that we would probably need him this season, we decided no, when the money was there, we decided that this was the right time to move him on and get even more money coming into the bank, so another 50 million. We then followed that up by selling John Rodriguez to Barcelona for £47.5 million. This was in January as well, if I recall correctly. So basically, another player that we signed on a free transfer with the express aim of loaning him out for a year, bringing him back, and then selling him, and it worked perfectly yet again. £50 million nearly again. That's 200 million off of just these guys. But in that topic, we also did the same thing with Ben Wagstaff, £30 million to Liverpool. Originally, we'd actually agreed a deal with 40, but then he backed out, things happened, and then eventually he had to come back in again later in the window for £10 million less, but he's earning a load of money, and having these guys that come in and just go out like that, sometimes they even have an impact here, but we just make so much money. Not really going to be happening over the course of this summer, because we basically missed out on all the good players. I think we did still sign a couple of interesting freebies this year though. Then there was Janelson, player I showed you last season. He's left to go to Ajax for £34 million. We've more than doubled our money on him, and it was a simple fact of it's very difficult when you're a squad like ours to find guys that are going to be good, capable backups that you're willing to put in the team if you get an injury, because most of them demand reasonable squad statuses of that kind of level, and it's really difficult to manage. And I think in future the only way we can really do that is by just having them for a season or two and trying to flip them for profit like we've done with Janelson, because he just got so annoyed and it was upsetting up the entire team. The only way around that is to have a really, really good young prospect, and we have in a few positions those guys, but obviously at the level we're at now, one of the best teams in the world, it's difficult to have those prospects just laying around basically. The last of the major outs was Robin Brouwer, who of course we signed for £25 million, and he was another left-sided player. So in the end, he did that loan spell at Benfica, and would you believe it, I have honestly never seen this happen before in the whole of FM24. They actually triggered a clause to sign him permanently on the end of his loan. The amount of contracts I've put on the table for teams that have these lovely little clauses they can sign these players at the end, and they never trigger them. Sometimes they'll actually send the player back and then buy the player off me for more money that same window. But no, Benfica actually triggered the clause, signed him for £20 million, and you know what? We got our money back, mostly, and that's a lot of money coming in. But then what did we spend that on? Because if we made a profit this season, but it wasn't that much, and we have still spent, well over £150 million on players this year. We dropped £300,000 on Mugamat and Kobo from Mamelodi Sundowns because he showed up on the next gen list, I believe, or was at least somewhere basically. He actually won the next gen again this year as it goes. Gone out a load of Tarshin though, had a really, really solid season and just played well all round, and he just looks, I think his attributes are better than the star ratings would suggest, particularly the potential side of things. He maybe just doesn't have the highest ceiling. Do like him though a lot, and 6 caps already. We also dropped £4.1 million on Munieku Haranobu from Kawasaki Frontale over in Japan. The young-ish Jasper, the key thing about him is he joined us for 4.1 million and he was worth an absolute fortune, and as you can see he still is. Has spent the season out on loan at Goodyear, and I'm hoping that will stop him wanting to leave. Within within literally 2 weeks, he was basically already complaining about wanting to go back to Japan, and there was nothing we could do about it. I said I'd sell him, but then Goodger said, how about a loan? So that should hopefully keep him happy for the meantime by playing on loan at Goodger United. And he's a hell of a player for them to have. 3-star CA. We then also did this. I don't know how this has happened in back-to-back seasons. This is Javier. Now, obviously, bigger release clause than we had with the situation with Moza. 8.25 million from Real Zaragoza. Just a player that we saw in a team report, and I thought, he looked kind of good. Obviously didn't look like this. Attribute-wise, was fairly solid. But then he comes in, and all of a sudden we're like, sorry, how has he got that good that quickly? But basically, we looked back onto the VODs and found that he, in the space between us signing him and him actually joining us 6 months later, had gained like 2 to 3 attributes sometimes in just like individual position. I think his finishing went from like 13 to 16 in the period of us signing him and him actually joining us, which is why we were so shocked when he actually joined us, because we just signed players and forget about them. Maybe a bit of an overpayment at the beginning, but he has become an absolute monster by playing all those games for Real Zaragoza over the end of that season. Absolute insane development. Hasn't played much for us this year, and that's because he's seemingly too good for loans, but he's never going to be our starting striker when you look at the fact that we've also got Tabakaru back at the club this year as well. To give you an idea, when I try to loan this guy out, Bayern are the team that want him on loan. It's like Bayern and PSG and teams like that. We then decided to fill the Padilla-shaped hole with Gustavo Villar, a 29-year-old Argentinian attacking midfielder, but we were able to pick him up for £6 million from Racing Club. He's worth a lot more than that. I do get the feeling that he will most likely be... I will try to move him on this summer, and you'll see why in a moment, but still, £6 million for him, a late developer as well, which we love to see. Just absolutely brilliant piece of business, because we could get a lot of money for him, and we just needed someone that could kind of sit there, give Hajaro and that support, because I didn't want to put all the pressure on him this season, given that he's been getting a lot of football over the last couple of years at such a young age, with Padilla basically now, of course, being retired. Next, though, there was some sensational business, and this was Emmanuel Boulet. He joined us on a free transfer from Lens, and look at the state of him. Now, the plan is that we'll hopefully get a decent amount of money for him. He's been on loan at Real Madrid this season, not playing a great deal, but it should show you the level of player we were able to pick up on a free transfer. I'm hoping we can get good money for him in the summer too and just keep it ticking over, but he was the only sort of major free signing we were able to make this year, and there pretty much won't be any that you'll see in next video because there just wasn't a lot available for this coming summer. But now, it's time to talk about some big signings. The first was £11 million spent on Antonio Pogonza, partly because he's actually really good. Doesn't have the jumping reach, but he does everything else. Like, he's got the pace to catch up, he's got great agility, balance, stamina, strength, a lot of those factors. He's not an aerial beast by any means, but he is great on the floor. Tackling, marking, positioning off the scale, bravery solid, aggression amazing. He's just not an aerial defender, but he's a very solid defender and has formed part of that second line. Point is, we felt it was worthwhile dropping the money, and he had Pog in his name. What's not to like? Except we then did go and splash huge money on another centre-back, and this is our record signing. This is he. His name, before you wonder, is not Salaman da Silva. That would be crazy. His name is actually Salamão da Silva, but people kept mistaking me for saying that his name was Salaman da Silva, and so you end up with these names. Born in Angola, but he is actually a French international, I believe. Only 21 years old, already got 30 caps for France, £80 million signing from AC Milan. The main reason we liked him is because he's young, he has insane ability as it is, but he's also, in theory, got room to improve. Spirited personality, unflappable evasive, so there's decent professionalism in there as well. He's 6'5" with 17 jumping reach and decent pace about him. 17 marking, solid positioning as well on top of that, which we're trying to improve even further. Aggression and bravery aren't amazing, I must admit. Tackling's decent as well. The fact is, even though we've paid 80 million, which is by far the most, it's over 30 million more than we paid for Eric Bartosz, the one that chat ripped me about, but I still feel like it was worth us just taking a punt on someone that is probably, and hopefully, going to become an elite player. I mean, he already is, according to the game, an elite centre-back at 21. So he's started 20 games for us this season. He's formed part of that second line, but has still played a lot in the first team, and it feels like, essentially, he's the natural successor to Vieira, Gudmundsson, or Chosen One. We're not sure who exactly it is yet, but he's the natural successor to one of those, and as long as we can keep him happy for the next couple of seasons and give him enough football to keep him developing, eventually he'll be ready to step in, and he's already ready to step in now. A single injury and he's perfectly good to come into that first team, along with Valenhaupt, of course, who is still here. So that second line of defensemen is ridiculous. It's like having Kale McCarr and Devon Taves on your second line. Oh yeah, and then there was also a £35 million signing from Man United. So this was actually a player that I don't know if I mentioned in the last video, because we had already signed him at that point, but he was so young he wasn't allowed to join us yet. This is Alan Douglas. He's 18 years old. We've picked him up from Manchester United because we saw a player at Man United that looked really good and thought, he's sort of affordable. Different type of striker to what we've got at the moment in the form of Reynoso and Tabacaro. Those guys are all big, fast, powerful strikers. Douglas, I feel like, could be a bit more diminutive, but still, I think he could be really a technically gifted footballer. Lovely hair as well, rate that from him. He's been on loan at Bikikara, but only 3 sub appearances, so I'll get him back in the summer. We can try again with someone a little bit different there. But I think there's potential in him, which is the most important thing, but it did cost us £35 million to find out. Just a couple more. This is a funny one in Mauricinho, because he's an 18-year-old Brazilian goalkeeper. We've picked him up from Flamengo. We like him, he's solid. The fact is, though, we'd identified him last summer and tried to buy him off of them. They refused, and essentially we came to a deal where it was going to be around about £10 million for him. But then, when we suggested it, and it was all like ready to go, and then they're like, no, we want you to pay like 14, but with some installments in there that we couldn't get rid of. And I was like, you know what? Actually, I don't think he's worth 14 million. What we didn't realise, though, is that his contract was up at the end of that season, so he ended up joining us for free instead. So well done, Flamengo. You have played yourselves, my friends. Speaking of players that we did spend a little bit, perhaps even too much, on Václav Bicic from Slavia Prague. £10 million in total. It's 5 up front, loads of it over time. Basically, for a player of this kind of quality to be as young as he is and seemingly still have that potential, we were quite excited about him. Again, he's gone on loan to Birkirkara. That's another one that I think we'll revisit in the summer because it's not quite worked out in terms of development there, but I think there could be a player here and hopefully it's worthwhile. But we had so much money floating around at this point, we were just throwing £10 million at players, which is exactly what we did on another player, and my god. This is Federico Maldonado, a 28-year-old Argentinian midfielder who we paid £15 million to Racing Club for. Now, he's just so good. And what the guy would advise you to do, now this might just be my save, but if you see in the Brazilian or Argentinian national teams, players who are playing for their domestic sides, playing in domestic teams, like playing for Argentinian and Brazilian teams still, for the love of God, scout them. You do find some of these guys that just stay in Brazil and Argentina way longer than you would expect them to, and you can usually pick them up for, like, this guy, if he's French or German and playing for one of the French or German sides, is worth £100 million probably. It's actually insane. But that does complete the sign. As you can see, we spent a lot of money, but we still made so much, and still lots of young players joining us. Less young, high potential guys this year than I feel like we did last year. It seems like we were scraping the barrel a bit and just wasn't able to find as many. And much like last season, we're actually going to talk about Europe first before we circle back around to the league. That way there's no potential spoilers and stuff like that. That's the reason I did it last time, and we're going to probably just do that from now on. That way there's no hint of any spoilers for European competitions. If any kind of weird nonsense like wow, last year with Valletta happens again. And so for us, with 4 Champions Leagues in 6 years, really the only acceptable result these days is to just go and win it again. And honestly, what better way to start than with a 2-0 victory at home against Real Madrid? Otavio scored another banger. It's just what he does now. Pereira grabbing the second one. We just dominated them. And it's these kind of performances that make me wish we could play against Spanish sides in every single game of the Champions League, because Real Madrid are still a good team, but Granelli's aging. A lot of their very best players are either gone or just not as young as they used to be, so they are not really replacing them at the same rate they were. So that's kind of good to see for us. However, I did have the most uncanny habit of speaking too soon. Bikikara holding their own here. I feel like every time I say that they immediately start losing, so there is that side of things as well. Oh, chat, I've got to stop talking. I really do. And next up we had Roma, and it was probably an even better performance from us in this game. Guthmundsson giving us one of those lovely clutch, what we thought was going to be the late winner, but it turned out that we didn't actually need it to be. Crompton and then Maximiliano Moser stepping in this one, as Reynoso had just sort of struggled a little bit out the gate, and Moser was just there chomping at the bit, ready to get going, despite the fact that at one point he did in fact miss, I think it was 7 penalties in a row across all competitions for a guy who was quite literally the best penalty taker on the team and has good finishing composure, all those other attributes as well. It was mad how many penalties this man has missed. And then came this. We travelled to Greece and humped Olympiakos 7-0. I would run through the scorers. Why not? Kravets grabbed 1, 2 for Babasi, 1 for Hajarowan, 1 for Pereira, 1 for Lahovi, 1 for Otavio. And again, Reynoso didn't get a goal. We won 7-0 and our striker didn't score. He did get an incredible backheel assist, but no goals, which is surprising for him. And he really had started the season very, very slowly indeed, which was leaving us thinking, you know, is Moser actually going to get a chance to catch him at some point this season and maybe even get a chance to start some games if Reynoso can't keep it up? He'd only got 29 goals last year. He needed to get back into the mid-30s, closer to 40s, really. Next up, we had a totally normal result against Sweetie United in the Champions League. These things happen. Sometimes you just rock up in away games and you lose by a score of 10 goals to 3. It happens to the best of us. So Sweetie did get a very good result against us there. Goal for Moser in this one. 2, in fact, for Kravets, who was kind of just carrying us towards the start of the season. We decided to play Octotrek for this one. No reason whatsoever. As always, what's a little match fixing between friends? It's just nice that it wasn't Hamren for once. Luckily, though, we were able to go away to last year's Champions League finalists' opponent with us and put down a very comfortable performance. Pereira, Hajaro, and Reynoso, at least on the score sheet this time. You see, though, Hajaro really chipping in a good amount of goals in important matches. We were just out of sight in this game very, very early on. Porto were honestly lucky to get the goal that they did, and I think that just shows you how much better that we are than most teams in Europe at the moment, and that's really all that's keeping Malta alive at the moment. It wasn't until this happened, where we went to Ajax and lost 1-0. Sometimes football will just do that to you. Evgenios scored us with the goal, which really did irk me because obviously he was such a fun player to have that we didn't really want to sell, but the time was just right for him. Obviously, Jethro Janga on the other team had a poor day as well. We were the better side. They got one good moment in the game, took it, and we just could not break them down. Again, Reynoso just couldn't get chances, and when he did, he spurned them. It was just not a good day for us at all. Luckily, we took out all that energy on Celtic by beating them 9-0. Basically, Celtic's backline weren't very tall, and it meant that we were essentially absolutely dominating them from set pieces in this game. I've never seen anything like it. Ironically, some of their defenders got some of the better ratings in their team. The strike force wasn't helping them, let's not get around the bush here, but their defense was so very outmatched by us from every single set piece opportunity. Like, we had a lot of corners in this game, 15, but Gudmundsson scored 4 times in this game, 3 of which were from corners. One was obviously a penalty because he was on a hat-trick. The Ramsden own goal was also from a corner. Valenhout's got a goal from a corner. One of Pereira's goals was also from a corner. Like, we're lucky if we score a corner goal, I don't know, in Europe, maybe every 3 or 4 games. Just got like 5 of them in this one game. I've even been 6, actually. 9-0 is the most important factor there. The Peters was injured. Moser had to start this one as well due to an injury to Reynoso, which would see him miss 3 months of the season with a torn thigh muscle. In fact, he and Moser actually went down with the same injury at the same time. And lastly, we finished off just doing what we do. 5-0 victory over Club Brugge. 2 goals for Maximiliano Moser, one of which was even a penalty. Who knew? Kravitz got one. Vieira got one. So did Hans Zimmer because of the injury to Babesi. But you can see, despite the horrendous result against Sweet United, that definitely wasn't a thrown game or anything, we won 7-0, 5-0, and 9-0 in separate fixtures to pull that goal difference right the hell back. So, of course, the question then becomes, what did that do for us in the Champions League stage? And, of course, how did the other Maltese sides get on? Very, very well. Now, we came third, but we'll talk. Obviously, if we'd have actually beaten Ajax, we'd have managed to come top. 32 goals scored and a plus 19 goal difference. It's not about that. It's about the fact that every single Maltese side got into the knockouts of the Champions League for the first time ever. Hamren came 12th. We didn't have to throw a match to Hamren this season. We didn't even get a chance to. They got 14 points in the league phase on their own, which is unbelievable. They got wins against PSV, Club Brugge, Shakhtar and Monaco, but 2 away wins in there, still very impressive. Draws against Benfica and Sporting. They love the Portuguese teams there. And then obviously defeats against Real Madrid, but only a narrow defeat to Liverpool as well. They really did have a very favourable draw, but they took advantage of it, and that's the most important thing. I believe after 5 games, Hammer were actually above us in the league. Sweet United still did bloody well. Now, they did rely on the points that we gave them, of course, but they got wins against Lyon and Celtic in there as well. Also a draw against Roma, defeats against Porto, PSG, Olympiacos, that's the one that really stuck in my craw, and of course Marseille. They could have done better than that one, but it was Birkirkara, first time ever getting out of the group. 8 points? 9 points on the board, 2 wins. Juventus and Wolfsburg, remarkably, draws against Malmö, Young Boys and Napoli. So very weird, these results, losing to Barca, Arsenal and Atletico. They get in on goal difference in the end, but my word, huge amount of coefficient points being generated for us based on the back of that. But who should we get as reward, I suppose, for doing so well in the league phase? It was a rematch against Ajax, the team that had beaten us in the group stage and denied us a chance to win the whole damn thing. And Lord, did we make hard work of it in that first leg. Reynoso, back after his injury now, finally, of course, as we're into March, hadn't played really much in ages, coming up clutch when it mattered most. 75th minute gives us the win. They didn't have a shot in this game. Janelson was booked in this one too, which was just kind of funny. It was a frustrating game that we thought we should do better. We were honestly thinking it was going to be the same as the league, but no, we got the dub. At home, it was much of the same story though. Shurabadi Hajaran grabbing a goal. Former player again, Omar Kebi with the own goal this time. I think we're just seeding the world with former players that can do agent things for us. 3-0 on aggregate. Made it harder than it needed to be, but we did push ourselves through to the quarterfinals where we would face off against Benfica, a team who've been a bit all over the place, honestly, at times in Europe, but had a very solid season this year, and we got possibly the worst start imaginable. Dominating the game, absolutely dominating. Then 2 goals in 3 minutes for Benfica out of basically nothing. Like, they had no real good chances in this game, and they didn't have a single shot after this point. They then got a red card in the 38th minute, which we thought, right, okay, now we can just get the hammer down and go. Reynoso got us back in the game after the start of half time, but then just pummeling them for the rest of the match, couldn't get the win, and we'd lost the home game against Benfica. We were very worried, but we needn't have been, as we're just massive like that, and just put them to bed in the first 22 minutes of the second leg. Reynoso with 2 more goals, one from the spot, Shurabadi Hajaran adding another crucial goal to the team. But Reynoso, for me, Maximiliano Moser, as you'll see later from his league performances, has been brilliant this year in terms of his goal scoring, but he hasn't been able to do it that often against the really big games. Reynoso sometimes does go missing, but for the most part, you can rely on him in clutch moments as you go through the Champions League, and having a striker that can score in the latter stages is so crucial, and you see it again here, as that allowed us to progress through to the semi-finals of the Champions League, and we would play Manchester City. There'd been a Manchester derby as the quarterfinals. I thought we'd end up playing United because they're generally much better than City at the moment, but no, I kind of wanted revenge on them again, but it was City, and then we did the business. Went to Manchester City, 2-0 up, Reynoso again, Joshua Crompton off the bench again. They got a late one back from a free kick from Alan Skinner. They just didn't really do anything in this game. We turned up and absolutely annihilated them, and I don't think they deserve to beat Man United. They did beat them very handedly, but they're not as good a team as them. Their squad has not progressed the way it used to. They've lost a lot of the good. They're very much like Real Madrid. They just haven't been able to recover from a lot of those losses over the previous years, and have just not quite been the same side for a while. Big win away from home, though, which we then compounded with an absolutely astonishing first half in the second leg. 2 goals from Shurabadi Hajaron, Peters and Callum Brooks with the goals, making it 6-1 on aggregate and 4-0 on the night. Didn't deserve to win this 4-0, obviously. Freddie Sands had an absolutely appalling day for Manchester City, but a 6-1 thrashing of Manchester City in the semi just put us in an unbelievable position to go into yet another Champions League final. And you know what they say with Sirens? For playing a team from Manchester in a final, we lose. For playing an English side, generally speaking, we lose. For playing a team from the Iberian Peninsula, though, we win. And who would we play in the final? Barcelona. And we made about as workmanlike job of it as you could probably imagine. Gonzalo Reynoso doing it yet again in the clutch moments, giving us the goal that wins us the Champions League for a 5th time in 7 years. Peters gets a lovely one off of some dreadful defending from Barcelona, but really, the only highlight we saw in this game from Barcelona, because we don't watch them on full match anymore, was literally a shot over the crossbar. They did nothing in this game. We were just dominant from start to finish in the things that mattered. Get that dub again. Back-to-back Champions Leagues for the 2nd time in this save. Our 5th Champions League in 7 years. We're doing everything we can. We just need the other Maltese sides to step up. So, of course, you'd have seen that we didn't play another Maltese side in the final, but what happened to the 3 Maltese sides that were in the knockouts with us? Bikikara's reward for getting into the knockouts was to play against a very tough Inter side. Unfortunately, the first leg did not go so well for them, as Michel Brunner getting the 3 goals for them. Castro did get one back for Bikikara, but at that point, it's basically curtains. They did at least give it a go in the second leg, but eventually went down 6 goals to 3. They at least showed something, though, but our main sort of targets will be what Hamron and Sweetie could do. Sweetie, though, had drawn Manchester City, whereas Hamron got the pleasure, potentially, of drawing Sporting, who actually weren't even in the Champions League last season, so they were not the better of the 3 Portuguese sides by far. And then this happened. Hamron went to Portugal and won 4-0. Pugliese, Robledo, Mateus and El Badwawi pretty much all but putting them through to the next round of the Champions League. Sweetie lost 3-0 at home to Manchester City. City are not good anymore, but they're not that bad either. In the second legs, Sweetie gave it a good go at Man City. Lost 4-2 in the second leg with Zaki and Juarez, but they're just not on that level yet. Hamron are the ones, though, you just think, there's something here. Only a 1-1 draw in the home game as Sporting threw everything at them, but they got the dub. 5-1 victory through to the round of 16. Unfortunately, their reward for the round of 16 was Barcelona. And after getting a 2-2 draw at least against them in that first game, where they were behind, they were in front, then level, then in front again, but Ben Hiard's late goal got Barca a deserved equaliser at the end. And in the second leg, they could do nothing as Barcelona absolutely annihilated them, but they're definitely showing stuff now. 14th in the group stage, got 14 points by them. Sorry, not 14. Yeah, it was 14th, wasn't it? Or is it 12? Either way, they got 14 points in the group stage by themselves. Honestly, if we had a chance to play against them, we could have even thrown them into the top 8 if we'd have managed to give them a win. You know, it's that levels now. They're improving. They've got people like Pugliese. They're getting better, but it's just a question of whether they can get better fast enough. So that was, of course, them all out. We've still had no other Maltese side reach the quarterfinals of the Champions League yet, but I feel like if someone's going to do it, it's going to be Hamron. So that's all well and good. But what about Gudja and Valletta and Tarshin and Balzan Youth? We had 4 other sides in Europe, of course, because we had 8 teams this year, 3 of which were in the Europa League. And it was a mixed bag. Gudja just doing Gudja things, really, in the end. 18 points, 3rd in the group in the end. Shamrock Rovers, Nice, Crvena Zvezda, Karabag, Milan as well with a big dub, Ludogorets, Midtjylland, Rapid Wien. Didn't lose a single game in the group stages. I mean, they were brilliant. The others, not so much. Tarshin really struggled to get going, despite having a fabulous team on their hands. They did beat FC Honka, beat Austria Wien as well. Good draws against Kondispor, Rangers and Besiktas, but it was losing to, I mean, Viking are a good side, don't get me wrong, but I feel like someone of Tarshin's quality these days should be doing better, but they did finish off the, at least the league phase well enough to get themselves in. Valletta, it was the opposite story, only the 7 points for them. And just speaking back to the Champions League briefly, once again, the points gained by the 3 other Maltese side was once again a step up. I believe it was 33 this year. The previous best was 29. So every year so far in this save, they've done slightly better in terms of points hauls, which is great progress. Valletta got dubs against Ludogorets and Domžale, our affiliate club, a draw against Lille, which was great, but it really, it was the defeats to Banik Ostrava. That's the one, actually, is the Banik Ostrava defeat really did cost them, particularly as it was at home, right? They're not a particularly good side. They're a middle-of-the-road kind of team. I would have expected Valletta, a team that have won the Conference League, to be doing better than that. So we did lose Valletta here. Tarshin went straight through to the next round, and obviously Gudja get themselves a cheeky little bye. Tarshin's reward for all this hard work was Dinamo Zagreb, and things did not go well. Home leg 2-3 or 3-2 defeat at home to Dinamo Zagreb. They were going to need an absolute miracle to have any hope of reaching the round of 16, which they incredibly managed to get by winning in Zagreb. The red card certainly helped, but they were already winning when they got that red card. But I think once it went to extra time, Consili, with the 93rd minute penalty, gave Tarshin the dub in the end to push themselves through to the knockout. They've been playing really, really well. Their last like 3 group stage games, they put up like 3 XG in every single one of them. They just had a really slow start, and it was the same in these games. They were absolutely clapping teams on paper, and it just finally started to turn into results. And in the next round, they would get themselves a draw against Viking, the team that Valletta should have beaten. Meanwhile, Gudja would be off against Galatasaray. And, well, the dub was there. An away win. Now, we do have a good record against Turkish sides with Maltese sides for whatever reason. Gudja getting the victory in there as well. Tarshin with a 2-0 victory over Viking, yet again showing that quality that they've now got. And once again, they were able to get the job done. Draws in the second legs. Gudja only with a draw against Galatasaray. Tarshin with a very well-worked draw against Viking, seeing them both reach the quarterfinals of the Europa League. And I was thinking, yes, Gudja have got the quality. Tarshin have got some quality as well. And then we got the draws. Gudja would play against Milan, and Tarshin would play against Brighton, because of course they would. Brighton, who'd done really poorly in the group stage, didn't stop them knocking out Leipzig, because you know what English sides are like in the knockouts. Once those reputation rolls start happening, you're done. And we saw that from those home games. I don't think I can actually show you the stats of these games anymore, but basically Gudja with the better side, Tarshin with the better side, and they get the draws. And that just seems to be how it is with these games in the knockouts. As in the second leg, they both went down 1-0, one of them with an own goal, one of them with a penalty, in very even games. They were even games, they lose them, they're better than them, they draw them. That just seems to be how it is with some of these. It's really, really tough for them to get those kind of results. Very disappointing, because I actually thought we had a real shot, particularly as they could have actually played in the final at going quite deep. I feel like Chelsea would have eventually ended up winning it, as it happens. Not that it did happen, I should stress, because Milan actually did beat Chelsea in the end in extra time to win the Europa League. So there's that, I suppose. But what about the final team, Balzan Youth, in the Conference League? Well, Balzan do Balzan things. I think this is the 3rd time that they've been in the Conference League, and I think they've won the group stage every single time. 5 wins and a draw. Vikinga, RFS, Aris, Antwerp, and Maccabi Tel Aviv. 6-0 away from home there as well, which is mad. And then a 1-1 draw against Anderlecht was enough with the goal difference to see them through to the next round, where they would actually get a chance to play off against Antwerp, a team they'd already played, but managed to get a really solid 1-1 draw away from home, which is what I like to see. I always like seeing those little draws away, wins at home if they can, and it usually sets you up for a good result, which they managed to get with a 2-0 victory, Pineda grabbing 2 goals for Balzan Youth to propel them through to the quarterfinals of the Conference League, where they would meet Sturm Graz and just did what they do. 4-2 victory away from home pre-show, 2 goals for Jan, 1 for Mbaye as well, giving them a massive chance at reaching the semi-finals of the Conference League. And despite losing 1-0 at home, they were able to go through 4-3 on aggregate, and the rest was shaping up quite nicely, with Molde, Stade Rennais, and Valencia being the other sides. They would face off against the French club, while the Norwegians and Spanish took each other on in the other semi. But it was the 0-0 draw. The moment I see a 0-0 draw at home like that, where they're the better side, I'm just like, we know what's going to happen in these phases. Molde lose at home to Valencia. I thought if they could get to the final, there'd be a chance here. And in the second leg, yeah, they actually did manage to get themselves in a brilliant position, were leading the game, gave up a goal, and then lost it on penalties. They were so damn close to reaching the Conference League final, having back-to-back Maltese sides in there. And, you know, given how close Molde had managed to run Valencia, and Valencia had come like 20-something in the group stages, I think Balzan could have actually given them a real go and won the whole damn thing had they got there. So goddamn close. Well, it's a weird one. England, obviously, this year, as a result of last season, didn't even have their extra team in Europe that they normally would do, which means their dilution was even lower than normal. And as a result, they just Englanded it in the end, which was what we expected to happen. We, though, still, in spite of everything else, managed to come in with a 5th place finish on the year, despite having 8 teams in Europe for the first time. And that's not even the really impressive thing for me. The fact is, this was our first season with 7 teams. Every year, we've managed to stagger it up. This year, we actually had 8 teams in Europe, and we're still able to overperform last year with 7 teams. And that's like, I don't think it really even helped us that much having 8 teams, because if you recall, we lost one of them pretty early, and the others didn't exactly cover themselves in glory, but it definitely helped us a little bit, I would say. But Valletta didn't really contribute too much to it by being that extra team in Europe for us, so I'm really, really pleased to go back to 7 teams next year and see what we can do. Now, we do, at least, managed to hang on to 4th spot again over Germany, despite them having a really solid season, and it would be nice to get back into the 20s again. But the point is, we've just lost further ground, and you can see that next year, though, I feel like we will start to gain it back again, purely because we gained 9 points on England straight away there, but we're also losing the worst season of the bunch, and it starts to get more and more catching up, basically. I think, unless we hit the financial crisis, which could see a spell to the end of the save, this season here is the one. when England lose that 26-point year and we're only losing 18. We could catch them there if we could really get our act together over those next few seasons. That feels kind of like the last real chance before it becomes an absolute slog. But that seems to be the one that we're really targeting at the moment. So who's actually going to be those teams for us in Europe next year? Because this is how the league finished. 15 points clear. We know that was likely to happen. Hamron ended up winning second spot easily by 11 points, looking comfortably the second best side in the league now. Goodyear, though, are back to their best. Now, the reason they're back to their best is because their manager left. Stefano Turati, who's been causing all sorts of problems and making them very mid, left to take the Italy job, and they replaced him with Kerwin Vargas, who was the manager that had left initially that allowed him to come in there. So he made a return to Goodyear, and literally, first season back in charge of the club, immediately gets Goodyear straight back into the Champions League again. This guy is easily going to have them being the second best side in Malta again within a season or two. Sweetie managed to grab the 4th spot, so at least they stay in Europe. This is where the problems are, though. Slima, the last team we want doing anything, despite changing managers, they've got a guy who's nearly as bad. Zabara in Europe again as well, and Hibernians, they've not been in Europe for years. The worst thing about this, though, I feel like, is actually Bikikara coming 9th. They've not been outside of Europe for 18 years. They've got so many good players in their squad that I have a real worry are going to try and return themselves to the club this season, and that could really cost Bikikara, as they are one of the better sides we have. And I don't know how we're going to fare with these guys in Europe next season. I think it could be a real slog for everyone outside of the top 4, basically. I just don't trust them, really. Also doesn't help that Balzan got to the Conference League semis, but then got relegated in the same season. It's just insanity. Moser, though, did absolutely clean up in the league with 23 goals, 13 assists as well for Babesi, but Moser really has done it in these games, but he's just not quite shown that elite level yet. In the second tier, though, Melita absolutely smashed things. 66 goal difference, plus 77 points. Not quite Nashar's record, but they do win the league very, very easily, and actually had already secured promotion, I think, with 6 games to spare. Masterschlock are back. I think next year, if you're looking out for record bad seasons incoming, look out for Masterschlock in our top flight next year. They've not been in the top flight for, I think, 15 years now, and they have basically no loans from us. So they could get absolutely rinsed next year. I'm thinking 100 plus goals conceded. It's that type of year potentially. So to the youth intake you say, thinking, he's not going to do anything. But this year there is a player. For we actually received a 4-star PA player. This is Mihaly Vajtner, a Hungarian, of course, because obviously Janos Toth, attacking midfielder. He was born in Pécs over in Hungary. For a guy that's only 15 years old, these are very good attributes. Fickle personality isn't the end of the world. He's not amazing on a lot of the physical side of things, though. But I think that there might actually be a player here. He's still not going to be amazing, let's be honest. But I think he might at least be the best player we've had through our academy in a very long time. Possibly even since the days of Matthew Side. I just wanted to show him to you because it's rare. So that's why he's on the year. Moser actually has been our top scorer with 29 goals, but only 6 of those weren't scored in the league. Now, it's great to have him scoring a lot of goals in the league, and I can show you his profile now. He is goated, of course, but he got 4 in the Champions League and 4 starts. He was okay, but I still don't think he's quite ready. What we're really waiting on for him is to see when he turns 22, whether he likes big matches or not, because that's the date when you find out if a player does and the pros and cons. If he does, then I'd be willing to trust him. But the thing is, Reynoso at the moment still just has that elite level that he's just one step above. He loves big matches, and it really does show in the latter stages of the Champions League when he always seems to score goals in the knockouts. I think 6 of his 7 goals were in the knockouts of the Champions League this year. It's just what he does. And he's still only 30 years old right now. I think we've got at least a couple more years out of him, Jeff, especially with that natural fitness that he possesses. But at some point, Moser is going to want to be him. And I'm just not sure he's ready yet. But still, all-round very good season. It's Reynoso's worst goal-scoring output for a while, but he did obviously miss 3 months of the season through a thigh injury. So there is a little bit of that. Still overperformed his XG, does what need to be did. Pereira gets 20 as well. 20 goals and 18 assists, though, for Facundo Pereira. He's had an underrated... I've not even noticed that. He's had an underrated worldie of a year for us, where he's nearly getting 20 in both categories. That's actually the sort of thing that keeps you going in there, too. Hajarin, just doing bits. He's never going to be putting up Padilla numbers, whether it comes to assists or goals. I'd be amazed if he ever breaks 20, whereas Padilla could do that on the reg and get double-digit assists, although Padilla did take some set pieces too. Kravets was actually our top scorer at one point. That's how good he was in the first half of the season. I think he had 11 goals by Christmas, only ends up with 14 in the end and 10 assists, but he's still the GOAT. He's the captain. He's taken that role well. Peters, 8 goals and 23 assists this year is insane. Lahovi bags another 8 goals and 8 assists. He's 34 now. He's not going away. He signed a new contract that will take him through till he's 41 years old. This man is never dying. It's brilliant. He's like Methuselah. VR did okay. Tabacaro did all right in the games that he did play. Still managed to get 7 goals in a few league games over Christmas while we had no strikers available, but he just needs a loan, and I don't know what we're going to do about it. Brooksy has also done okay whilst being a complaining monster. 21 more assists for Foa Babesi. The amount of assists this man has got, I'd be curious to see what the best 11 looks like once those guys get into it, because Babesi, he's surely going to be the assist record breaker, although nobody has still managed to touch the 24 assist season that Vidazinha had. Peters has come the closest with 23 this year, but they just can never quite get near it. As for the setup this season, generally speaking, it's been Reynoso, Hajara, and Pereira, Otavio, Kravets, Babasi, Peters, Gudmundsson, Chosen One, Vieira, Bjork, Sultan. Then with Vallenhaupt coming in when needed, Callum Brooks obviously as a substitute here, Tabakaru rarely even being the sub a lot of the time. Zimmer's played quite a lot this season due to Babasi being injured for a spell, Maldonado operating in this spot, Salamander Silva of course coming in a good amount, like he still played 20 times, but we need more football for him next year. Figueira hasn't played at all really, and I'm hoping that we can retrain him to play in the centre, because that's the only way he's going to get any football for us. No point in playing him to train on the right, because we've got other players in that role. Just realised Crompton wasn't visible here. Only 5 assists and 6 goals this season. Didn't play as much and didn't have the season he had last year, but I think it's just because Pereira was so on it this season. Yeah, they're 107th. This is a new high for them. I didn't even know this. I thought they were still stuck down where they were, but no, they've actually moved up to 107th now on the Carl Zammit. Part of the reason for that was their Nations League campaign, where they actually did quite well. Came second in the group in the end. In the end, it was just that defeat to North Macedonia that really cost them, and then losing to Iceland. They put down some decent numbers, just weren't quite good enough to get out of this group, but once again showing that they are more than capable of holding their own here. But their actual gain in world ranking has come from the start to their Euros qualifying, where they got a draw away in Austria and a 4-1 hammering of Lithuania, which means currently they actually sit in a Euros qualification spot. And look at the group. They've got Liechtenstein and Lithuania in there, which is surely going to produce some good points for them, but then it's Denmark, Norway and Austria. I just don't think they're going to be enough to get points off of those teams on the regular to get into the top 2, but you just never know. They've at least started well. I still hope they can get into the top 100 at some point in this save. It does feel likely that they will eventually get there, but maybe not in the lifeblood of me actually being manager. Maybe in the looking forward to the loan farm, which honestly has taken another step back. Minus 30 now, which means we're at like, what, 225? It really has dropped down, but that's exactly what we wanted. It's still functioning perfectly well. It's just, oh, hang on, this has got to be messed up. Unfortunately, when you play versus mode, did you know this? If you play any kind of versus mode, it will mess up all the views that you use inside of career mode. Isn't that a lovely feature from FM there? Either way, there you go. Lots and lots of 5-star players out on loan. Lots and lots of high potential guys out there as well. Pugliese with another 21 goals this season. Mateus doing bits as well. Generally, just very good players are still out on loan, especially at teams like Goodyear. It's crazy that they were doing as poorly as they were and not qualifying for the Champions League when they have some of the best loanees in the whole country, but that's just life. Davis has been amazing this year as well. What is he looking like these days? Yeah, he feels like a guy that could genuinely become a monster. Top goal scorer on loan, though, is, of course, Juan Pablo Paz, again out on loan. We really do want to sell him this summer. 29 goals. Felix Anderson for Floriana in the second tier with 23. Most assists, though, is Renato Rocco with 21 assists and 14 goals from Melita in the second tier. He could crush next year in the top flight, but 17 for Wael Zaki as well, the Egyptian monster that's now playing for Sweetie United. They've really got a second wind of incredible players. I'll be curious to see what they do in the coming years, as these guys are just going to get better and better. He's only 19, and we find these guys tend to get bored of their loans as long as they stay in Europe. Around about the age of 26, they could get some prime years out of Wael Zaki if he keeps playing these kind of numbers. It's exciting. Finances, they're actually a little bit silly now. We've got 420 million in the bank, which is lovely. 67 million pound profit this year. It's the fact that our transfer budget is over £500 million. 570 million, give or take, which is a cool 150 more million pounds than we even have available to us. So it's kind of stupid that this is even in our transfer budget. We literally wouldn't be allowed to spend it. But that's just how things go. We've spent a lot more money. We're actually still operating. So we could spend even more next year and still be in no danger of FFP. We could legitimately spend 200-300 million this summer if we wanted to. But there's just no need to. That's the thing. We've won 5 of the last 7 Champions Leagues. We still only have one player earning more than 100k a week. It's the perfect situation, really. It really is. Which is why our aim for next season is going to be a simple one. We've got to go back to back to back. We've never managed to do 3 in a row in this save. We want to do that, make that happen, do what we can for Malta, and hope that the others can kind of catch up. You know the drill by now. They just need to keep doing it, because we don't have probably that many more seasons left of this, because we're not going to the end of the new game cycle. We do have something else planned, but I wanted to make sure that we found a nice stopping point, because I don't want it to get too sloggy, basically. I talked about this last time, but I just don't want it to become too sloggy, and I feel like that stopping point is definitely visible, but there's still a lot more that we can win in the meantime, and I want to just clean up as much as possible. I want to see someone win the Europa, some more other sides do some bits, and I still think they can, because some of the loans we're getting them are insane. So join us over on stream, of course, for that today, as we're going to be looking for another defensive midfield backup. That's the main plan, I would say, for what we want to do today. And if we have to spend 80 million on it, then why the hell not? It worked so well last year. So yeah, drop a like if you're new, or subscribe if you're new. Drop a like too, that'd be lovely. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. Promise we've got some other videos coming up in the next month or so. It's just how things have been lately. But I just really wanted to thank you for your patience and the nice comments on the last video. When I said the channel was dead, I meant more in terms of the frequency of content, which is, I'm sure, what came across anyway. But yeah, with me moving house now, lots of things are coming. It's just very difficult when you're a one-man operation, but I will get that stuff out because I really just want to make this content for you, basically. So I'll see you guys very soon. Hold your gun. Capybara. Bye-bye.